her in particular, she was having some trouble warming up to it. And round about episode 8 or 9 or so, it crosses over with Thor 2. Because whenever a new Marvel Cinematic Universe movie drops, with Guardians of the Galaxy probably being a notable exception, because it takes place off planet, those movies have repercussions on what goes on in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
Okay.
So, because it's all happening in continuity at the same time. So, as soon as you get to episode 8 or 9 when they cross over with Thor the Dark World, that's the point that it starts getting really interesting. And if you continue to watch, you realize that the somewhat duller episodes that you started with in the beginning were laying some very, very important groundwork for things to come. And it's all just built into this really, really good experience. I've got about 4 episodes to go until I finish the first season, and it was all I could do to pull myself away from the Netflix to come and record this podcast.
Excellent. I'll have to spend some time to do
It's
so.
so good. Especially if you've seen Captain America 2, you can predict the season closer.
Okay, I'm gonna have I have it picked up here. I have it sitting next to me. We just have to watch it. So
You haven't seen Cap 2 yet?
no,
I'm really glad I didn't spoil more.
Good.
Oh my
Thank you.
god. Oh.
Thank you for doing so.
Have you seen
I kind of
Have you seen Thor 2 yet?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, and I did recently see Iron Man 3, which I didn't find that bad, considering the considering I read Extremis recently,
Mm-hmm.
and I wasn't that impressed with the story. I liked the movie better, and I may be one of the few people that's out there saying that.
But I haven't read the Extremis story, so I mean, I just took the movie for what it was. I think the first Iron Man continues to be the best Iron Man movie, discounting the crossover. Like Robert Downey Jr. is enjoyable in every single one, but in terms of, I think it comes from the fact that Iron Man is one of those characters who's never had a particularly strong rogues gallery, and a lot of people were rubbed the wrong way by the way that they portrayed the Mandarin.
Yes.
In that they didn't portray the Mandarin.
Yes.
But no, the trend for the Phase 2 films has really been that every single one is better than the previous. Incredibly high praise for Guardians of the Galaxy, especially if you've seen Captain America 2. So,
yeah, we saw Guardians of the Galaxy. Tremendous praise from that. Better than I expected, and it was one of those movies I was kind of like, is it really going to be worth the hype? And yeah, it really did deliver. So I'm very happy about that. When we were in theaters and saw Captain America, the first one, mm-hmm. It took everything within me to not yell out Winter Soldier's next, because just from one particular scene in that movie.
Which the movie's been out long enough, you can spoil it.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. They're on a train, in, I believe, I can't remember specifically if it was like the Alps,
probably the Alps. They were overseas
in Europe, on a mountaintop, snowy, and behind enemy lines, and Cap and the gang go in to advance and take on. I forget what was actually going on at that point in time.
Well, they were trying to capture the Hydra scientist.
Right.
Zeller?
Yes, I believe that was it.
Yeah, something like
anyway, they go to try to capture him, and Bucky gets knocked off the train.
Yeah.
And if you're a fan of any sort of comic book, they're not dead until you see a body.
Yeah. The only people that stay dead are Thomas and Martha Wayne and Elektra. And even that, or no, it's Thomas and Martha Wayne and Uncle Ben. They're the only characters that stay dead.
And Kal-El's parents. Krypton stays blowed up.
Yeah, but more and more Kryptonians keep cropping up, man.
Yeah,
more and more of them.
Right. True. You're right, though. Yeah. So you don't see a body. He knocks off the train, and okay, fine. It's assume, for those that want to say, falling from that height is impossible. Well, guess what? You're in a comic book movie. anything's possible.
And
So
and boy howdy was Bucky definitely on some kind of an experimental table when Cap rescued him at the top of Act Two.
yeah.
Wonder what
Hmm.
happened there.
So
Perhaps something
yeah.
that would allow him to survive a fall of that magnitude. Hmm.
So yeah, I knew where they were going. I was wondering how they were going to incorporate everything, and I was really hoping that they were going to start to work towards a Civil War story across all of the films. Now with the release of Phase 2 and Phase 3 of the Marvel movies, we've seen Captain America 3 is
Civil.
Civil War. Now, we don't know the details if it's going to be if the end of the movie is the beginning of the entire Civil War story, or if it hits at some point along the lines. Personally, I think Civil War has to be, if it's going to be done right, has to be an Avengers movie because of what the Civil War storyline is and that entire run of, I think, 7 issues.
Well, there's a theory that I read that because for the purposes of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, Marvel Studios does not have the rights to utilize basically any of the X-Men characters, and they are so important to the Civil War story that it might be a bit of a fake out, and it's going to be more of like the characters that they do have the rights to versus the U.S. government, not necessarily a huge fight amongst the heroes.
Hmm. Interesting. No, oof.
Although it very well could
Oof.
be, at the very least, it could be infighting amongst the Avengers because you don't really get Civil War without Iron Man versus Cap, and Robert Downey Jr. has been signed on to appear in Cap 3.
There we go.
Yeah.
That's good. I'm happy to hear that. So let's see. Moving away from one Disney giant to the one that I believe truly broke the internet
Mm-hmm.
this past weekend
Mm-hmm.
in Star Wars:
Oh.
The Force Awakens.
Oh, yeah.
Now, I don't know about you. I'm going to preface all of this. I had been, as soon as I had heard J.J. Abrams was taking over this, I really wanted to rekindle my love of Star Wars. After the smothering blanket that George Lucas had, and you just flat out pillow that he smothered my love of, from the prequels to the special editions to all of his buffoonery, is one way to put it. And okay, fine, that's me gonna fanboy on that and be just disappointed with what the prequels were. Okay, as I look back on it now, Episode 3 isn't that bad in the over the scape of things, but one thing that really has been such a great service to me is the Clone Wars, and the fact that it's on Netflix and I've been able to binge watch that with seemingly very little time commitment to half-hour episodes. The quality, the storylines, the characters, absolutely fantastic stuff.
Did it get significantly better after the first stack of like 3 episodes? Because I went to go see the Clone Wars movie, which is just the first 3 episodes stitched together into a movie, and walked out disgusted.
Yes, it does get significantly better.
Okay.
There are a lot of filler stories and different little side things, but it's a very important relationship that you see between Obi-Wan and Anakin, and Anakin and his apprentice, or Padawan, I should say, in
what's her face?
Ahsoka.
Yeah.
And their relationship with the Jedi Council, the Jedi Council's relationship with the Senate, and all of these different dynamics that are out there that they were never able to play into in the movies, you're getting it over the course of now, I think, 6 seasons that's available. And you're getting tremendous backstory. And as far as I'm concerned, true Star Wars lore that you can go back and hearken to. Because I'm kind of like, wow, I didn't notice that. I kind of want to go back now and see if it really does reference Attack of the Clones, or if this really does play out in Revenge of the Sith.
Mm-hmm.
And I haven't been able to really spend the time to go do that, but it's there. And I'm like, oh boy, this is good. I finished season 6, transitioned that into Star Wars Rebels. Star Wars Rebels is a new show on Disney XD for those of you that do have cable, and it takes place 15 years after Order 66 takes place. You don't specifically. We haven't seen Vader yet. We haven't seen the Empire. We haven't seen the Emperor, but there are. It's the beginning of the rebellion, and it throws back and throws nods to the Clone Wars. The reason why the Clone Wars is now on Netflix is because, well, Star Wars is now owned by Disney, and they got to snatch that up from Cartoon Network. So it's continuing to have life. I think there's at least one more season coming out on Netflix for the Clone Wars, but it's tying the universe together, which is such an expansive universe, which frankly, what we've only seen in video games and everything is the Old Republic, is millennia and centuries before the events of the Phantom Menace.
Discounting Force Unleashed.
Yes. Yeah. Discounting Force Unleashed. That hasn't been referenced at all right now either. So, which is a very, very good thing.
Well, and it's one of those things where you never quite know what counts in canon, because at one point there was that Clone Wars miniseries that Genndy Tartakovsky directed, and I can never pronounce his last name right, but Tartakovsky, whatever.
Yeah.
He had directed it, and it was the one that actually ran before Episode 3 came out. And
yes,
for my money, that's the Clone Wars right there, because those were great. And like I said, my taste for the CGI cartoon was not wedded by the quote-unquote film that they released in the theaters. So that was the one that I was watching, and I've completely derailed and lost my train of thought. Oh, yeah. So Lucas, when they wanted to do the CGI Clone Wars cartoon, scrubbed the, in my opinion, superior Tartakovsky miniseries out of canon. And reportedly, Disney now has said that the only things that are canon now, none of the expanded universe stuff counts anymore. So none of the cartoons, none of the video games, none of the novels, none of the comic books. It's just episodes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and now the new 7.
That's disappointing. I wouldn't be surprised if they're going to include Rebels in that because it's now Disney owned.
That's possible.
And fine if they do. That's disappointing because Shadow of the Empire book, the novel that takes place between 5 and 6, very, very good stuff. Highly recommended if you haven't already read it. But I'm very happy with what the cartoons have done to reinvigorate my love of Star Wars. Now we got our teaser. And it is maybe less than a year away, as we are now only 2 days into December.
Such a good trailer.
What do you think?
Oh, such a good trailer. Now, me and I'm pretty sure everybody else did giggle a little bit when the handguard on the red saber lit up.
Yeah.
But apart from that, everything in that trailer was amazing. Now, 2 good points about the red saber, though. Number 1, sparked a hilarious set of memes.
Yes.
I've seen keyblades. I've seen snowflakes. I swear, I saw a light menorah. So that was great. But I was actually having a conversation about this trailer earlier today with Eric, the guy that writes the Redeemers for me. And apparently there is a theory that is rapidly gaining backers to it, and I now happily subscribe to this until it's confirmed, that the guy in the black cloak that lights up the red saber might be Luke.
Huh.
And those little, I've been calling them the light toothpicks.
Yeah.
Those are there as a handguard. And Luke has a pretty good reason to want to protect his hands.
Yeah.
And if you think about it, none of the original trio was shown in that trailer, but maybe one of them was. You don't really know. And before,
Wow.
and like it's a